By now, we've all heard the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise, the Sith legend that would help Sidious push Anakin Skywalker towards the dark side. As the tragedy went, Plagueis was so powerful and so wise, he could use the Force to influence the midichlorians to create life, and even keep the ones he cared about from dying. But the real interesting aspect of this scene is the lore behind it, and the fact that Sidious's use of the term wise was not part of his scheme to manipulate the Jedi Knight. In fact, Sidious had not only used the title Wise well before Episode 3, he actually told his master Plagueis that he would be remembered in the history of the Sith as Plagueis the Wise. In this video expose, we'll look at the first time that Sidious was inspired to refer to his master as Wise, and explain the events that caused him to view Plagueis that way. As we'll see, despite the way the scene plays out in Revenge of the Sith and the context of the tragedy itself, Sidious's use of the word wise has nothing to do with the Dark Lord's powerful and unique knowledge regarding midichlorians. The first time Sidious referred to Darth Plagueis as Plagueis the Wise occurred more than 30 years before the outbreak of the Clone War. Unsurprisingly, for two Sith Lords who were committed to bringing the Sith Grand Plan into fruition, Sidious and Plagueis were brainstorming ideas about how best to bring about the demise of their ancient enemy, the Jedi. Sidious rightfully rejected the idea of Darth Tenebrous, the master of Plagueis, whereby an individual assassin was assigned to each Jedi. Such a plan would only end in their being betrayed, and the Sith becoming the hunted ones. Sidious and Plagueis would then conclude that any plan had to see the Jedi destroyed from within, knowing that armies of Sith had for millennia failed to destroy the Order through a direct attack. Therefore, the Jedi had to be lured into a trap, exploited for their hubris and blind obedience to the Galactic Republic. So that the galaxy turned against the Jedi, where the Ancient Order was viewed as the enemies of peace and justice instead of its guardians, Sidious also knew any plan had to involve the Republic. Of course, this discussion would form the very foundations of the Clone War, thought out more than 3 decades before it was fought. But Sidious was stuck on one particular problem. Even if the Jedi Order was destroyed, being strong in the Force would still continue to be born, posing a threat to the Sith. But this allowed Plagueis to reveal his ultimate plan that even Sidious wasn't yet aware of. Sidious would eventually be elevated to the position of Supreme Chancellor, and it was this public persona of Sidious that would ensure any Force sensitives born after their ascendancy were prevented from undergoing Jedi training of any kind. In the absence of training, they would pose no harm. Sidious was taken aback by the reveal, immediately telling his master that he should be the one to be Supreme Chancellor. However, Plagueis refused, informing Sidious that he had the political skills for such a position, and more important, only a human could rise to become Chancellor within the present era. But again, all that aside, Sidious believed the title should be Plagueis's, merely for the fact that his knowledge of the dark side paled in comparison to his master's, unlikely to ever be equaled by Sidious. And then, as Plagueis was still adamant that he would merely advise in secret from the shadows, Sidious bowed his head in deference, telling Plagueis, "In the annals of Sith history, you will be known as Plagueis the Wise. Whatever you ask of me, Master, I will do it." Plagueis couldn't help but smile, feeling flattered by receiving such a title and praise from Sidious. But after a moment of silence, he would change topics completely, telling his apprentice of the first mission he carried out for Tenebrous. As the novel Darth Plagueis makes clear, Sidious was not attempting to flatter or manipulate his master through false praise. In fact, it was quite the opposite. We have to remember that Sidious had been Plagueis' apprentice for less than a decade by this point, still only in his 20s. As Sidious would reflect upon his giving the moniker of Wise to Plagueis, he realized he didn't do it out of flattery, but out of a recognition that his master was powerful well beyond Sidious's present understanding of the dark side. He truly saw Plagueis as the only being capable of guiding the galaxy into the future. This is all to say that the origin of the Wise title was legitimately given by Sidious through the respect he had for his master's knowledge and wisdom. Through the early years of Sidious's lessons from Plagueis, he saw themselves as a team, learning to rely on each other and united in the dark side. From Sidious's point of view, there was no secrets between them. This isn't surprising, given that by this time, Plagueis represented a millennium of Sith doctrine passed down from the era of Bane, while Sidious was only then beginning his true path with the dark side. It had nothing to do with Plagueis' efforts with midichlorians, as Sidious wouldn't even really know the extent of his master's knowledge in this area for another 2 years from the time he first referred to him as Plagueis the Wise, when Plagueis would invite Sidious to his personal retreat following an assassination attempt upon the Dark Lord. More important than midichlorians was the fact that Plagueis was slowly revealing his elaborate plan to Sidious piece by piece, and the more he learned, the more he saw the true wisdom of his master. In having provided his apprentice with the opportunity to envision himself as Supreme Chancellor of the Galaxy one day, Sidious was enthralled, knowing that he would reach the pinnacle of galactic power. Viewed in this context, it isn't surprising that Sidious would give the title of Wise to his master, viewing the power and wisdom of the Sith Lord as legitimate and thus showing Plagueis respect. The fact that Sidious was true to his word and referred to his master as Darth Plagueis the Wise to Anakin more than 35 years after it was first used demonstrates that the title was not some offhand comment or an attempt at flattery. I would even argue it was a show of respect by Sidious. While Sidious saw little value in his master's obsession with midichlorians and brutally killed Plagueis, so was the way of the Sith in the Rule of Two era. As Sidious would recognize and tell Plagueis in his final moments, it was the wisdom of his master that would allow him to earn the chancellorship, and the true goal of the Sith could not have been obtained without Plagueis. Regardless, Sidious first referred to his master as Darth Plagueis the Wise more than 35 years before the scene between Palpatine and Anakin in Episode 3, and it was a title Sidious used at the time with great deference and respect. So there we have it, the first time Sidious called Plagueis Wise and why. We love making these videos, so why not subscribe for more fun Star Wars theories and discussions. Also, if you enjoyed the video, think about giving a like or leaving a comment. Or perhaps follow us on Twitter at SW Reading Club for updates regarding the channel. Or support the channel through Patreon for access to exclusive rewards and discussions. If not for me, for the good old days.